Also joining us right now, we have also the presence of Our Excellency the Ambassador to Kenya, Somalia, Eritrea, and Seychelles. This is Ambassador Meti Goodsten, the Ambassador of Royal Danish Embassy. If you may just stand as well and appreciate us. And we have various representations here from the country, far from Siaya, from Northeastern as well. So we have the face of Kenya in this particular forum. But we want to go straight into the discussion. And as I've mentioned, we want to pick our thoughts on three pillars right now. That is the political, and we have also the economy, and also the social pillar as well. But we want to get our introductory remarks from our panelists, Martha Karua, who's the party leader of NARC Kenya, also NC Musalia Mudavadi, and also we have General Ali Makwere from the Wiper Party as well. Just remarks from them, first of all, about the field, the political tone and tenor of the country as it is right now, even in light of what we're going through with the BBI rallies, with the handshake as well. Do you think the trajectory and the true note that we're really talking about is we're moving the needle to the right direction? Let's just begin with you, Martha Karua.
Before I say anything else, I'll read this quote from the program. Towards structured, people-centered, issue-based, and all-inclusive national dialogue. We stress each one of those words. Structured. And what we must be asking ourselves is whether the processes we see in our country answer or fit this description. Our leaders had a handshake, which some of us called for, which we celebrated because, if the truth be told, it brought down the tension. We went from a chaotic nation to a normal nation where things could function. Beyond that, with the BBI initiative, have we played our role of holding those leaders to account on the process, on everything? A dialogue should be structured, because if it's a national dialogue, it involves so many. If it's not well structured, it's likely to leave others out. Are we together? Let's take, for instance, the phase 2, because you'll be talking, so let me say my piece. The phase 2, we have seen people going to present. It's organized, and it's in a rush. This group, that group, those who do not fall in that category, where shall they present? And Nakene and myself, we're in that category. We are neither those nor these other ones. You see? Neither for nor against. Why? Because we were promised a document. At the bombers launch, we were told copies are coming. I will confess, I've seen the copy from my smartphone. How many people in Kenya have smartphones or the data with which to read our 37-page thing? Copies were not coming to everybody, to 48 million, but if in your village there is a copy with your friend, you can access it. That's what we used to do in the previous processes. So are we structured? Is it the fault of the leaders only? When we all go to the rally and we cheer, and except Nyeri that asked for the copies, I haven't heard anybody else asking for the copies. Asking for the copies is forcing accountability upon the leaders. You cannot be able to say whether it's good or bad if you have not. And a dialogue is not a talking down. Leaders, we are used to talking. I can talk for the whole day if you allow me. But that is not a dialogue. Hiyo ni hotuba natoa. A dialogue is where I'll pause and you also give me your thoughts and we engage. Forget BBI. As political parties, do we ever engage one another? We are members of CMD. We enjoy functions hosted by CMD. Do we ever have a party leaders meeting? We have, by the way, asked CMD to convene one. Because if there are things that are ailing this country, including the things that BBI would want to see, party leaders can also engage in a dialogue which will inform their parties and inform the dialogue on the position of their members, isn't it? How can we solve national problems without engaging with one another? We are competitors when the elections come, but on a normal day, we must together be nation builders, not nation destroyers, which is what we end up becoming when we do not engage one another. We've been talking about electoral justice, isn't it? The chaos that preceded the handshake were about electoral justice. May I tell you one thing? Almost all the parties and all the very ardent supporters are guilty of flouting the electoral rules and procedures. And it's case, most of the times, it's a case of everybody out trying to outsteal the next one. Obviously, those in power have more muscle, so they end up outstealing. But it is a question of everybody trying to foul. Very few people don't foul. And you know that even from your polling station, you see it. That one party will try to get those allied to them hired as the returning officers, as the clerks. You will try to do mahesabu ambayo hakuna mtu anaweza, because you want to emerge the winner. Until we sit across the table and talk about how to clean up our elections. You can remove the Electoral Commission 1,000 times. You can do all you want, but we will never have free and fair. So from this dialogue festival, my take is that as parties, we have to sit down and engage. Engage people we necessarily may not like, but we happen to be citizens of the same country. Our fate is tied together. We better sit across the table, ask each other hard questions, and because the moderator said it, we have a deficit of trust. Even when things are good, if I don't trust you, I will not be sure ujafanya kakitu pale. You know? So how do we restore trust? We can negotiate on how to police each other. And I always give an example of Denmark, not because the ambassador and deputy speaker are here, but because it's something I saw when CFD took us on a tour of Denmark. In Denmark, every area, I'll call it a county because I can't remember what your areas are called. Every county supervises its own elections. How? The political parties get together, the political players, and they together set up a committee which manages the elections with the help of the civil service. It means there will still be an IC at the center giving us policy, but on the ground, maybe one person and we manage. If I'm managing, I'm taking myself elections in my area with the others, at the ward level, will I allow a known person of bad character who can be bribed and steal my votes to be employed? We will not. So we will be able to checkmate each other. They do the counting together. If anybody wants to count, if there are problems, they solve those problems. When we go to court, we are taking a political battle and making it a legal battle. I went to court all the way to the Court of Appeal, Supreme. I didn't get justice. We will never get justice until we sit across the table and dialogue. I'm just emphasizing the importance of dialogue. And just to finish, people-centered. People-centered means we hear the people's voices and they count. They are taken into consideration when decisions are made. Public participation is one of the principles in our constitution in Article 10. In this country, we have made public participation token. And allow me to just give an example of BBI. When you get 1,000 people in a town hall meeting, it is okay because we all can't fit. Even today, this is not Kenya. But you must open channels where those who didn't make it to town hall can even organize their own meeting and give their own input. So that the BBI committee should be able to receive views even for those who feel BBI should never be there. When it comes to holding meetings, the BBI people can have their meeting. But also the NOR team must have their meeting So Mumias ought not to have been cancelled, and I don't support them. But Mumias should not have been cancelled because I support democracy. Once you allow everybody to have their say, then the majority can have their way. Are we together? But are we holding leadership to account, or are we trying to be politically correct and saying this thing is good and we go in a hurry? Dialogue is a two-way traffic. As we sit here, please don't go very far. Just read that guiding statement and ask yourself whether in your party you have dialogue or whether you are spoken down to. Whether as women and youth, our voices are considered or we are spoken down to. Whether the public participation by parliament is normal tokenism or whether we are really being heard or things are being done over our heads. I consider this forum so important. This is where we must start growing our democracy. As I sit, I would add, I'm looking around the youth outnumber my generation, and that's the way it should be, because we are assured of continuity. I want to urge the youth and women. We politicians love to use you because we cannot succeed without you, the women. You are the marginalized majority because you are majorities, but your say is almost nil. Stop accepting to be PMOs. What is a PMO? Politically modified leader. Please grow organically. A politically modified leader will not agree to be firm, to say black is black, if those who are modified, responsible for modified, want you to say yes or to say it is blue. Are we together? Let youth and women grow as leaders organically and not be politically modified. Asanteni.
Thank you. So the essence of structure for dialogue is very important. And from the outset, we had that democracy begins with conversation. Democracy begins with conversation. And that's where we are headed. So thank you very much. The issue about party interactions, party interface, party dialogue is very key. She asked, how can we solve national issues, national problems without engaging one another as parties? And this is why we seated here together, just to try and mull over these issues that are coming to the fore. I want to give also the opportunity to Gerald Makore to just also give introduction remarks briefly. Zimbabwe.
Habari zenu. Ningependa kutangaza kwa kiongozi wa chama cha Wiper Kalonzo Musyoka nilikuwa ameshaomba kuwa aje hapa kesho saa 5, na hiyo imekubaliwa na wale ambao wanaongoza. Nawashukuru sana kwa kukubalia Kalonzo Musyoka aje aongee hapa kesho saa 5. Lakini kwa vile niko hapa kama mwenyekiti wa chama cha Wiper, sitasema mengi, lakini nitachangia tu food for thought. What we're going through as a country right now is in a way slightly disturbing. The handshake and BBI need everybody's support. But we have got certain weaknesses as Kenyans, which we must address without looking back. One, we have the tendency to say that we like something and yet we don't like it. BBI discussions have been a little bit tricky and a little bit disturbing, because when we are not at a rally, we all say we support BBI. But when we get together at a rally, you'll find that there are very, very serious diversions of views and even situations which remind us of that dirty past, which in reality is a show that we don't support BBI. This reminds me of Professor Leon Festinger's theory of cognitive dissonance. You may go and read it later. The theory of cognitive dissonance. In 1956, Professor Festinger from Harvard University defined it in a very interesting way. It's like you, a young man maybe, has invited a beautiful girl for tea, for lunch. And when you get there, you realize the food is not good at all. Now, instead of saying it openly, since you're the one who invited the young lady, you say, oh, this is wonderful, this is very good food. Oh, I'm enjoying it. And in reality, you're not. In short, Professor Festinger said, there is a tendency of cognitive dissonance, that what you're saying is not what you feel. And that is dangerous. That is happening in Kenya, and it is destroying the good intentions of BBI. Secondly, food for thought. Robert Kennedy, as Attorney General of America, said, and I quote, "In a world such as ours, torn with strife and ridden with prejudices, where governments deny the common humanity of man," you may add woman these days, "it is to the youth that we must turn to for a better future. Whether we like it or not, we have thrust upon the youth the greatest responsibility than any other generation that experienced at their ages. Here is Kenya, with close to 65% of our population being the young people, and not 75 from the present census, but my calculation says 65. 65%. But these are young people of a different nature. They are the most outstanding, the most knowledgeable, the most best informed young people that we've ever had in this country. And yet these young people are not fully involved in preparing for that better future that we must have. This is a challenge to all of us. We always tell them that they are future leaders. They are actually the leaders. And Chiraul Ali Mokwere is ready to hand over. We must involve the youth fully. BBI should have even forums of nobody else but the youth, because they're the ones who want to prepare their future. And it's not the youth of my age group when I was a young man. This is where you could find one or two people from Kwale County who are university graduates. This is a time when they're so well informed, so knowledgeable, that some elders have something to learn from them. Finally, Kenya is on the right path. It is important for us to shake off the past and prepare for the future. And anybody who is against the BBI and tries to play the card of cognitive dissonance is truly an enemy of Kenya. It is time for us to ensure that we come together and talk openly, because the biggest enemy to this country is one, corruption. And we all know it. We know who has stolen what. We all know it. We do, including the thieves themselves. But then when we meet such characters, we instead praise them and talk very happy, congratulate them for what they are. That is very well, because we are very generous. That is cognitive dissonance. Say what you have to do. Dr. Kalonzo Musyoka will be here tomorrow. He will expound even more on our party's position. I was only laying the ground on what he will add on, but related to the party, the cooperation with other parties, and the future of this country. Thank you very much.
Right, and of course, it's raised a very pertinent issue about cognitive dissonance, and how also the BBI, people are actually embracing it because the notion at the end of the day is that you want to be politically correct. But when we get to these particular podiums, you see divergent views, as he mentions. Of course, if you've been watching keenly what is happening in the news, even inflammatory remarks tipping off the tongue so easily of some of the legislators that we do have in this country. So the structured dialogue that Martha Karua was talking about, how do we bring it to bear when we're having these BBI rallies as well? And this is something also we shall be tackling. So we shake off the past and embrace the future, he says, and these forums in the BBI rallies, we want forums that are particularly targeted to the youth. And I think that's a very, very good trajectory. I don't know if applause for him again. So we want to give this opportunity to Honorable Musalia Mudavadi And before I do that, also I want to acknowledge also the presence of His Excellency the High Commissioner of the High Commissioner of the United Republic of Tanzania. This is Dr. Pini Chana, right? She's there. So I know you and Ali really get along famously, right? Since he was also representing our country in Tanzania as well. So after this, yeah, we should sit beside her and of course enjoy a delectable lunch as well. But let's just give a conversation opportunity to Honorable Musalia Mudavadi as well.
Thank you, the organizers of this function, CMD, and the partners, the Danish government and others. Let me start by commending you, because this is becoming a popular forum, a popular session, where Kenyans are engaging and we are beginning to track out issues. I think it's a very, very good culture that is being developed, and we should strengthen it going forward. I will not talk for too long because I want to really, whether it is reggae, or whether it is rumba, whether it is Isukuti, whether it is Nyatiti, whether it is Lingala, whether it is Segenya from Kwale, the question is, why are we dancing on the same spot? That is what worries me, and that is what should worry all of us. So, we stand here and we talk about what we want to do. As I was coming down here, a media crew stopped me and they asked the question, now that there's you, there's Alonso, there's Raila, do you think now there's democracy? That was the question. And I said, that is precisely the mistake we keep on making. I am Musalia Mudavadi, I am not democracy. This is Martha Karua, Mheshimiwa. She's not democracy. This is Ali Chilao Mokwe. He's not democracy. What is democracy? Isn't it that we should focus on ideals, allow freedom of association, freedom of expression, give you the right to speak out? That is what it's all about. It's not about 3 people or 4 people. So, for heaven's sake, if you want to grow democracy in this country, let us shift from imagining democracy is about 2 people, 3 people, or 4 people. Let us erase that from our minds. Otherwise, we shall not grow democracy. We shall not expand our democratic space. Kwani mimi Mudavadi na wapimia oxygen. We have reached a stage where some of us think that you will not breathe fresh air unless Mudavadi has the dispenser or the oxygen cylinder and is the one dispensing oxygen for you to breathe. This is the folly. We must also move away from an electoral process which creates seasonal enemies, seasonal villains. And because it seems easy when you paint Musalia as the villain, it becomes easy for somebody to say you are either anti-Musalia or the other. Let us open up our minds. Because as we support the principles around BDI, we are being asked a few questions out there. Is this about ideals and the good of Kenya? Or is this about creating a villain out of an individual or 2? What is it we are doing now? We are being asked a lot of questions. That why aren't you allowing other people to speak? The way Martha said. Why aren't you allowing their ideas to be heard? Now, if we are at that stage and we are just in the formative areas of talking and the question has not been put. If the BBI itself is beginning to appear so divisive, then tell me how divisive the referendum will be if we don't sort out ourselves now. So these are the hard questions. And these are the questions we should continue to ask us. And we should not hide from these questions. Because if indeed we want a good Kenya for everybody, then we must ask those questions. You want to talk about the economy? I've always said it, that there's a big elephant in the room. Public debt. And I started for warning as far back as 2015, that there's a big elephant. And it's growing, it's feeding on the shrubs. It has finished the grass, the trees. It's gone into some shrubs. Sooner or later, there'll be nothing left for that elephant to feed on. An elephant is herbivorous. But if you're not careful, a herbivorous animal can become carnivorous. This is what we are seeing. Because the public debt that we have is going to eat into every kibeti in this room, every wallet in this room. Even for the good ladies who know how to keep the last cent close to your bosom, it will go and even fetch that one there. Because high public debt translates into higher taxes eventually. Schools will start having problems. Hospitals will start lacking medicine. Food will be lacking on the table because of the massive public debt. So these are the issues we must engage and start working on. So I want to appeal to you that as we talk about the BBI and as we dialogue in such fora, we must be very clear that it is important that we shift our discourse from personalities to substantive issues. And then that way we shall start finding solutions. So thank you so much for giving me an ear. And we don't know how much time we have, but we'll try and work with you.
Fantastic. We have, of course, this is meant to be a dialogue, and they've set the tone. And if you listen keenly, it has actually filtered into every angles that we want to focus the discussion on: political, economic, and we have demographic dividends that Ali Mokore mentioned, cognitive dissonance that is there right now. Where is the political parties and converging as far as BBI is concerned? We have different sides of the marvels. So we're wondering, as citizens, where is collective uniformity that can actually make this country be a successful shaking into place of the BBI? Because that was the ultimate agenda of the country. So I want to cross over to you, right? My aim today is not to ask questions. You're the people who are going to ask questions. We have our panelists here, and just shoot your name. Give us your name and fire away your question. Very so we'll begin with the names. I don't know where Tony is. I'm here. You're fantastic, yeah. And I'm also to be taking questions or mental notes of what we'll be asking. So let's take 3 at a time. Fantastic. Let's begin with the lady over there.
Check, 1, 2. Then
yes, just give us your name.
Next time, from Muranga.
Alright, problem with the mic, please. Kindly, so can you, your name again? And are we there? Can you shout? Just shout, we can hear you. Yes, please.
What happens? If the debate again, if the debate walizunguka over Kenya wakijua kiokota nini. And again, tushandika report. Ndio kutambia sijui nini wasiku ya debate zenu, sijui nini za debate wanaandikia nini. Alafu ndio report na fili kwa kuna. Tunazunguka kwa kutambia debate. And I mean, if it was something good, why they pay people to attend the rally?
All right, so let's take one more. So the question is all about what are the rallies for? Just a moment. Let's observe some silence. What is the rallies for? We had the task force, gallivanting about. So what are these rally for? That is the question that is being asked. Yes. So we need to have another person with the mic, a roving mic over there. So somebody should help you, so that we don't get just one side. Okay. The gentleman over there. This gentleman. We'll give you a chance. Be very brief. Give us your name. Just.
Okay.
Kindly let's take one, please. One at a time. One. Because of it of time.
Wacha nishikanishe kwa sababu ni kawaida ya kwamba tunakuwa na forum kama hizi. And we know that this one is just a story and entertainment kama ile ya BBI ile ya reggae. That is why we are here today. Mostly to young people of this country. Why is it that today we are here with our waheshimiwa ya maana sana? Honorable Musalia Mudavadi is here. Honorable Martha Karua is here. Makwele representing the party leader is here. Unaongea vizuri sana, and Honorable Martha Karua, when you are speaking here, ma'am, unaongea vizuri sana. And I remember, without forgetting, that there is a time that you swore in Kibaki at around 1 p.m. That was contrary to our constitution. And today you are here speaking with us, telling us the way that young people.
All right, that is a question. Thank you very much. Can we get another question? Last one. No. You need to follow instructions. Listen. You need to follow instructions. If I say I have a stopwatch here. You're done. Let's take another question over there. He's done. All right. Finish. Briefly. Jonathan. Follow instructions.
Mimi nataka niulize ya pili, kwa sababu youth are a target group in this country. And we are tired being neglected and subjected to a course every after 5 years. Na nataka kusema hivi na tutarudia that the problem is not these people again, it is us. Yes. Kwa sababu yule ninamuita Mkikuyu, ananiita Mjaluo, huyo anamuita Mkamba, then we cannot unite and has a platform as young people and we bring a revolution in this country.
Thank you. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you. All right, the gentleman behind there. Then you take a response. Yes, John. So John has spoken for most of you, isn't it? No. You take the opportunity. All right. Let's see from that gentleman. We'll come back to you. Yes. This is the first round of questions. Please. Okay, we can hear you from there. Just shout.
My name is Kenyans. I have a question to these politicians. Actually, we have a problem with politicians. It's not about BBI. We have a problem.
Well, what's up with the mic, kindly? Can we sort out the mic? Mic, it's off, please. It's working. Is it on? Long press it.
I can see from
please.
Our problem in Kenya is not about BBI, about constitutional, nothing else. The problem is politicians. Some of these politicians you see here, today they are telling us about BPI, tomorrow they'll be in rally supporting the same BPI. How can we trust you guys? Can you be straight so that when we go, if we're going to something good, we should know exactly, okay, our people that we trust our politics with are telling us to do this.
Thank you. To the issue of trust. All right, let's take the last one, then we answer those questions, we'll come back to you. Let's go that so that I don't even lose track of your questions. Please. We'll come back kindly.
Let me answer quickly. This is my question, and it's not about BBI. My name is Samba. The question is on political party management. Why is it that we are having parties in Kenya to be special vehicles? If that once the election is done, you never hear about political parties, which is a very big concern. If political parties were strengthened enough in Kenya, then we would not be having the challenges that we are facing. Then number two, why are we relegating youth issues in political parties to just be like flower people in youth wings and such, only to be seen and not to be heard?
Thank you. So let's answer that set of the first set of questions first, then we'll come back to you. So, all right. So we threw it back to you, Mother Korua. We had Jonah beginning there, saying also there was a bit of an issue during the 2007 elections, of course, and that's why we are having this cycle of electoral injustices. Maybe piggybacking from that, but maybe you can just answer that for the benefit of the youth today.
Yes, I'll call it a good question. I took sides because I belonged to PNU. The very same way, one James Orengo, who was with me at KICC, took sides for Raila.
Yes.
Unless if you think that it was holy to support Raila and unholy to support you cannot ask a question and then answer for yourself. Number two, Keboito is the one who was announcing winners and losers, not Martha Karua. So if Keboito announces and Kibaki is sworn in, how does it become a Martha Karua matter? I was not, but I unashamedly supported Kibaki, a position I hold up to today. And the Speaker, I have no apology. Because you cannot apologize for choosing your side. The democratic choice. And that is why we have this dialogue. We have this dialogue so that we uphold the rights of even the people you do not support. That if one person has an agent, the next one must have. And if a winner is announced, I couldn't stop the Governor Kirinyaga being sworn in, although I didn't think she would. Because the person announcing is not me. Yes. The same way. And I want to ask this. Kibaki was the president, not Martha.
Yes.
Why must I carry him on my back like he was my baby? How come the male politicians in his cabinet are never told you saw Kibaki, but Martha Karua told you? Please, reorganize your thinking and be a real Democrat and a fair Democrat.
So that we can actually save time listening. But here you see why we are in this particular forum, why we asked the BBI, and why they went, gallivanting about the country to seek your opinion as well. Because still, we have wounds amongst us that needs healing. as a country. So we can hark back to these things and try and be emotive about it. But that's healthy, and I think this is a good conversation as well. But also let's try and manage and respect one another even as we are airing our views as well. So let's just give an opportunity also to Jira Al Makwere and Musalia Mudava to answer some of these questions that have been thrown to you as well. You have the mic there.
This is a very interesting forum, and the questions asked are very, very important, but they can be answered. Honorable Martha Karua commented on the first question posed by Jonas. Yes, I was there also at night.
At night.
That's right. When we saw in President Mwai Kibaki for secretary, I was there. Why did you do that? The Electoral Commission had already announced who the winner was. Two, our constitution those days did not specify time and venue. It was put at
Let him understand you.
2010, we decided to make specific. Can I finish?
Let him finish, please.
In the Kenya Constitution 2010, we specified that the president would be sworn in at such a time, during the day, such a day. It's clearly specified. Before that, it was not. So we followed the Constitution to the letter. Two, there was the question of repeating the same thing again and again. Somebody mentioned. Yes, we have to. Governance is not a one-time event. It's a continuous process. And we have to continuously review, look at our constitution, look at the problems we've had, address them, and put things right for you, future generation, you, the leaders of today. If we don't do that, then we shall be dwelling in the same problems that we have been experiencing, and we shall not make any progress. Please, even if there's BBI this year, I'll be very happy to hear of BBI 2 in 2021. It is important that we continuously adjust, and that's how young countries can develop. It's not a one-time event. Two, we have problems in the country. When somebody mentioned we cannot get along because this is a Kikuyu, this is a Jaluo, this is you don't know what the small tribes say. Anyway, I can tell you now. I belong to one of those small tribes, tiny, the Digos. Many people in the small tribe take this as a matter for the big tribes, yourselves. That they're just treated as little things to follow what is decided by the Kikuyus, the Luos, the Luyas, the Kisis, the Kambas, and everybody else. But the little tribes are just expected to follow. It reminds me again of I crammed and recited in public when I was in Standard 6. He said, little things that run and coil and die in silence. I repeat. Little things that run and coil and die in silence and despair. Little things that fight and fail and fall on sea, earth, and air. For all trapped and frightened little things, the mouse, the linnet, and the negroes. Forgive us our trespasses, little creatures everywhere.
But we need to ask you also, Honorable Joao Amakwere. We know that, yes, it was not expressly in the Constitution that this given time you should be swearing in a president. But don't you think you denied Kenyans the ceremonial, flavor and feel of it during the day as we've done and have that particular custom in this country? That we are to do this under the cover of darkness. Why was there a tearing rush?
We considered that. He was already the president. It was just a matter of opening the next page.
Reason. His mandate was expiring at midnight on that day. So he had sworn in so that there is no vacuum.
So that has been answered. Honorable Musalia Mudavadi.
I think I'm not at that venue, but you had. But let me just say this. As a consequence of those events, then what happens? All right? So the country went into turmoil, and then eventually there was the Kenya National and Reconciliation Dialogue, the process. And in the process, attempts were made in the Constitution 2010 to try and deal with some of those lacunas that may have been in the old Constitution. So why do I come back to that same issue? That why do we put as the same? It's because if we identified the issues and we knew they were there and they were properly identified in the dialogue process, why have we taken so long to hold? Who should be held to account? And I agree with Jonah on one issue, that the people to be held to account are not just the politicians, but also the voters. And I have said constantly, time and again, Kenyans do not deserve any sympathy. The Kenyan voter does not deserve any sympathy, because it is the Kenyan voter all the time. Every season, the Kenyan voter falls into the trap that we politicians place in front of them. You always fall into the trap that politicians place before you. Let us just look at some of our counties today. Are you telling me that when you are voting for these governors, you did not know who they were? Ukweli usemwe. Mutuambie ukweli kabisa. When you are voting for some of these governors, did you know who they were?
But most of them are 54% product. Where the city is from.
So if you knew who they were, and you knew what they have been doing, and you knew what they continue to do, would you vote for them? IBC can be a scapegoat once in a while, but not always. IBC can be a scapegoat.
Check 1, 2.
Maybe I'm becoming too sensitive, so somebody let me. So the question is this: why do we make that mistake? What do we do through this process of voter dialogue? Through dialogue here, to start bringing proper awareness to the voter, because choices have consequences. Thank you. This is the issue. Young people must be nurtured. The young man said that. And I think all parties, I know ANC is doing something about it, to integrate with the young people and make it a party that it will be for the young people. Thank you. That is something we're going to work.
So let's just finish with the last question you asked about political parties and why they use as special purpose vehicles. Then we'll come to the next round of questions as well. Maybe, Mother, we can begin with you, because you began talking about parties having a conference, a conferencing point where you can actually see eye to eye and have a dialogue, which you don't see amongst parties. So people have divergent views even when it comes to BBI. You're not given that particular share opportunity or an opportunity to actually also advocate your ideologies.
I think the question was more to me about institutionalizing parties, making them institutions that outlive the founders. Whereas in this country, parties are registered every electoral season. You know, even now people have started registering again. What should we do as citizens to make sure that parties serve the purpose and become institutions of nurturing our nascent democracy? It's by joining parties whose ideals you believe in. If you join parties just as an election vehicle, we are helping sustain people when new parties are in power every other time. Parties not built on ideology. Could we stop crowding in parties of which you know nothing about? Parties where you'll be denied the ticket when you have won it and it's given to your competitor. You still stay there or go to a new party by the same people next time, hoping you'll be supported. I think as citizens, as voters, as party members, we have the responsibility of nurturing our parties. And you cannot nurture democracy if you yourself is not democratic.
All right. So the question that also Jonah asked is about you being the problem. And if I heard Jerusalem Gavadi saying that the problem that we fall into traps. Why are we all none the wiser when it comes to elections that we are falling into these particular traps, so to speak? Maybe that question can be answered by you, right? So who will answer this question? A lady, briefly.
We have a small bishop with the frequency. It cannot go very far.
Oh, it cannot go very far.
I just hand the mic for purposes of identification.
Okay.
Then just give me.
All right. So can I give that opportunity to a lady over there? A lady. She's yes. You with the bui. Just give us your name. Yes.
Can come forward.
No, for the interest of time, can you just answer? Yeah, just answer from there because now we need to save time. We can hear you. Raise your voice. We can hear you.
Okay, will I have the privilege to answer and also ask my question?
Yes. You're answering?
Yeah, I will answer.
Okay, answer.
Okay, to answer that question, we never fell into a trap. Actually, we voted for the leaders we wanted. But IBC voted for them.
So that is the electoral injustice that we shall be addressing. So it is IBC, right? Do we have any other opinion?
Okay.
IBC is here. Yes. Can we get an answer from IBC? So IBC.
You promised me you will give me the chance to speak.
Yeah, but you're still on IBC. Why can't we just finish with IBC then we go to your question? Right? But could you answer that? They're saying that you actually are the people who are backing the elections. We vote their leaders, but they get another different person. Yeah, is that the case?
Thank you so much, the organizers, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. I am Joyce Ekwam. I'm the manager in charge of partnerships, initially in charge of voter education with IBC. I'm here to represent IBC. First of all, greetings from Chapukati. There is handshake in the country in the spirit of handshake. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to respond to your issue. IBC organizes and manages elections. IBC provides a logistical arrangement to allow the voter to mark the ballot paper. IBC, in the presence of political party agents and the agents of private candidates, enumerates and tallies the votes. The political party agents sign with IBC that whatever record is in that ballot, in that tally, is a true reflection of the voter turnout in those of each 40,883 populations, and therefore they sign out, and therefore it is the voter who
Okay, guys. Listen. It's power. Just silence. Listen up.
Hey guys, majama, oya. When we started this forum, I said categorically that we will be respectful.
Yes.
Yeah? And I said that our engagement will be civil. When you shout, that is not civil.
Yes.
When you force yourself to be listened to, that is not civil. Sawa. So tuendelee, stima tafadhali tutulie. Tusikize, sawa. Please.
Alright, let's have the time, please. Guys, please. Just respect time. Let us just have the floor. You get your opportunity.
Thank you so much.
And can you be also brief?
Yes, very brief. So when that ballot paper is back, we tally the votes, we give the results, the political party agents sign the forms, we go and take the forms to the tallying center at the national, at the Bombers of Kenya. We aggregate those votes and give the results. So back to the voter, who marked that ballot paper. The onus is on you, the responsibility of electing leaders of integrity, as Mheshimiwa Martha Karua and Mheshimiwa Musalia has said, is upon your head. Take the responsibility and vote wisely.
Let's get the lady. What's your name again? All right, we're getting now the second set of questions to come to you. Yeah. Kindly continue.
My name is Sadia Hussein. I come all the way from
Order, please.
County, one of the most marginalized counties.
Which county?
Tana River County.
Tana River County.
Yes, so it is the servants that betray us, not our votes. Secondly, I want to ask a humble question to our leaders. I call you leaders, not politicians. I have a humble request that in Kenya we have 9.3 million women. I'm talking about the social pillar aspect,
yes,
not political. We have 9.3 million women who are FGM survivors. Unfortunately, when it comes to issues of coronavirus, the local issues, people are alert and alarmed about the deaths and all those things. Why are leaders silent about girls dying every day because of female genital mutilation? If they don't die during the cut, they die during giving birth. Why aren't we alarmed? Why aren't we concerned about the humanity aspect?
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. We will. Just a moment. We promised that.
Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Hadija.
Kindly speak up. Speak up. We can't hear you.
My name is Hadija.
Fantastic.
I'm from Resambu constituency. My question is to all the political leaders. Martha, you saying the government has a pretext, the BBI report. Why can't you take the initiative of all the political parties to print it and give it to the minority to read them for themselves? Because at the end of the day, you say it starts with us. It can start with you. And another thing, can you guys, because most of you are old, can you be able to step down during election?
Okay. This side. Yeah. This side. Yes. Guys.
My question goes directly to the leaders of political parties. I represent, I'm very sorry, supporting represents personal responsibility. I want to understand the structure that you have about persons with disability, and that from nominating a person from your party who represents persons with disability. Do you have any structure so that that person you have nominated, he has a team that he works with raise the ideas that represents persons with disability. Number two, as a person who has been nominated, for example, we have nominated Senator Chupia. Do we have a set finance that will facilitate the needs of persons with disabilities and the ground? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Remind me your name again?
Nelson Isaboke.
Nelson Isaboke. Thank you. Okay, we need a lady now. A lady. There's a lady over there.
Yes.
Please.
My
so
name
go
is
a gentleman, a lady. Yes.
My name is Virginia Nduta.
Virginia?
Yes, from Kibra.
Speak up, Virginia.
My name is Virginia Nduta from Kibra.
Yes.
And I do have a question. Nataka kuuliza viongozi ambao wako na machama mbalimbali. My question is, kwa chama zenyu, do you put youth kwa board kule juu at least ikue? Kuna kwa machama zenyu sisi tunaonangata kwa media, kuna wanawake, kuna wazee, lakini hakuna vijana. Do you have mkona vijana ambao wana represent kwa your party nini, kwa chama zenyu, wale wa mama wako kule juu kwa NEC? Another question is, wanasiasa na viongozi wetu, nyinyi mnaongelelea maneno ya BBI, and yet mkona law ambayo inasema siku hizi kuna wamama wanasafa in the name of cervix cancer and breast cancer. Mkona sheria ambayo wamama watakuwa napimwa hata kama ni mara mbili, hata kama ni twice a year, at least somebody, mwanamke ajihisi yuko safe than doing political, and yet at the end of the day poor women and men are suffering.
Thank you, Virginia. So those are 3 questions so far. We take the last one. We got one from here. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for that. Last one. The gentleman is next. All right. Shout your name. Ask your question. We'll come to you in the next set of questions.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bogendegwa from Kiambu County, and I have a question and also something that might be...
No, question, please, not something else.
To the question, now, we are seeing a lot of energy and excitement in pushing the BPI to be implemented or to go through. But have we also asked ourselves, and this is a question I would love these politicians to answer us, is why have we not seen the same excitement to push the other reports like the TJRC, the Dongo report, which also have pertinent issues that were mentioned like land. While we are concentrating on elections only, but we also know that land is an issue that we must also address when we talk of justice. Thank you.
All right. So could we answer those questions and we come back to you? 4 questions, we agree. We go back to the panelists, we come back to you. Yeah. Right? I'm the next. So we come back to you. Can we begin with Sania? And we want to appreciate also joining our panel. Joining the Shaman nominated partners also. I'm sure. I'd like to thank you for joining us. Nominated Senator.
Fantastic. God help us, at least the power is back. Yeah. And also appreciate as well General Secretary Edwin Sufuna as well. So a lot of questions have been raised. Just to apprise you what is happening. This is a session where we are looking at 3 pillars of the conversation we're having: political, economic, and the social. Just to pick our conversation, around that. So a lot of questions have been raised, and just because I know of the interest of time as well, Justin Muturi, you had also indicated that you're in a tearing rush today. We want to just give you a handy opportunity to say something, just briefly, before to go. Just briefly.
Thank you very much. I was just walking in through here to say hello. I believe that some of you were present earlier in the morning at 9 when we were in the other session. Glad to see you are together with Honorable Mother. An indication that Honorable Sani was coming and Honorable we call him Zilpa was also around. I am also aware that the Right Honorable Raila was also to be present. But Unfortunately, I think the youth session has taken most of my time, and I may not now have the opportunity to have to contribute to say anything, even by way of reiterating some of the issues that I said in the morning for the benefit of those who are not present, who are not with us at that time. But just to reiterate, because I'm sure with this panel here, I know quite a number of those issues raised about the 3 pillars will get some justice, and with the views coming from all of us. Mine in the morning was just to reiterate the need for dialogue. Oh, and I've seen my schoolmate and younger brother, Barak Muluka, is also in the house. Maybe many of you do not know that that is my schoolmate. I'm sure the Honorable Msali knows. I reiterated the position, let me just give you the political thing, that if we want to grow our democracy, and grow it well, we are not saying that those who want to be independent should not be, but we must strengthen our political parties. And that is a pillar that if we want to really even enhance dialogue better, whether we agree or we don't agree, we agree to disagree with respect and honor and civility. That has been my main message this morning, and I want to reiterate it here for the benefit of those of us who are here. And please, because these ladies and gentlemen who are here, know that the House must start at 2:30 on a Thursday afternoon without fail. I will beg your leave to leave. Thank you very much, and I wish you fruitful deliberations. I have promised the youth that we will get, if I'm likely to, some space tomorrow, Friday. I will still join because I think it is very helpful for the country. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you, and we really appreciate you also for the time. Thank you for this salutary effort you put forward. Thank you for the gesture. A round of applause for him again. So questions were raised, we need them answered right now. Jennifer Shabana also will be back, and Abshiro as well. They're just saying off the Speaker of the National Assembly. So we want to continue with the questions that you raised. And we had Sadia raising a very ticklish issue about FGM. Why are we putting so much effort right now to coronavirus, but we've had this particular stigmatization of FGM? A lot of girls are dying, maybe, and we're not really aware because we're not fully given that information via media. So that is one question. Also, the issue of age came up, and they're asking, why do we have leaders who are still hanging by the fingernails after long years, right? And they don't want to leave these spaces for young tax that we have also in the House today. The issue of political parties and youth representations within the political parties, they're asking, how come we're not seeing youthful faces in the boards or in the structure of the political parties? I think also Edward Sukuna will answer that. Any other question that I'm forgetting? That you have, right? Which one was this? Sorry? Right, and yes, on the BBI report as political parties, Martha, you raised this and you say we don't have the copies. Mashinani, people are not having that particular hard copy of the BBI. Will this be the honors of a party to actually distribute these particular copies for the people? Right? And then also there was a question about disability as well. Asked, remind me your name again, Mheshimiwa? Benson, right? What was the question? Briefly, I forget. Infrastructure, the ramps, right? In our buildings, in our plannings in the cities, why aren't we not considering also the people who are other able? You know, the country in 2016 launched the National Spatial Planning, but how come that is bereft also of the people with disabilities? Maybe you can just take a quick round of answers on that. We'll begin with you, Martha.
Infrastructure for people living with disabilities, squarely the work of the government. An opposition party, through its policies, can give a statement of what it would do when in power, but cannot be a substitute for the government, which is collecting our cumulative taxes. That is the long and short answers. But if it is making sure that parties are inclusive, every party has a responsibility to have in its highest organ a person living with disabilities. The same with the youth, the same with women. In NARC Kenya, my vice chair is a youth. Kabala, why don't you stand up? They see you. And the women leader is a youth who is not present here. So we try to do the best we can, but as for infrastructure, squarely on the government. This joins the same question, can we publish BBI reports? To begin with, our parties are cash-strapped, but even if we had money, why would we do what our taxes should be doing? We can't, not even for our members. We are waiting for the government to fulfill its promise. We must stop making other people bear the duty of the government. We must push. And even today, when people ask for support for fees, in the first instance, we must refer them to those who have public funds, namely the counties, the MPs, the ministry. Let us not excuse the government from its role. Only when they fail completely can we do first aid, and we do it as Kenyans.
But Mother, is civic education also a component of the political parties?
It is, but,
yes,
remember, majority of our parties are not funded. NARC is funded. So what are we expected? How are we expected to raise? If membership of political parties in Kenya today start giving to their parties instead of expecting, then through our membership we can raise funds. But we have distorted democracy in Kenya. It's like the population thinks because it is called a political party, it's also a money machine. The truth, it is not. It is through the coins picked from members managed to keep offices afloat. I'm afraid capital projects are not something a political party, and especially NARC Kenya, can do for now, but we do whatever is within our means. We distributed the 2010 Constitution, but we used to get the copies at government printer. They were available to every political party. All we did was provide fuel for the vehicles going around the country.
Thank you, Martha.
Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe we can actually adapt an answer or question that is being answered by Martha. We throw it to yes, we'll come to it. We'll come to it. Let's just finish the political parties first. Edwin Sifuna, I know also ODM, when you talk about funding, the quota that is coming from the political parties registrar, I don't know if this amount has actually come to you. And if a component of civic education is your honors, why aren't people not having the BBI report? Martha says that this is a component of government, that they should actually be people who should make sure everyone has a copy of BBI. But political party, where is the space?
Thank you very much. First of all, let me apologize for the absence of my party leader. I have been here since morning, but we had the youth engagement there with the speaker, and that is why I've come late. So I've missed a lot of the contribution. I want to say and confirm that ODM receives public money. My sponsor, the Registrar of Political Parties, she's here. And she will tell you that under the Political Parties Act, the functions for which that money can be used are clearly defined. So if, for instance, today, I were to take money from the political parties fund and use it to print BBI copies, it would be very difficult for me during the audit process. We just finished being audited by ODM, by the Office of the Auditor General. We are audited, and this, the use of those funds is very strictly regulated. People think that there's things you can do with that money that actually the Act proscribes. This must remain the central duty of the BBI Secretariat. They are the ones who are responsible, they are the ones who have the running of the facility for which the BBI is being run, and we continue to encourage them to be able to put up these copies. But I am sure Kenyans have seen that there has been an attempt at least to provide soft copies. I'll be very surprised if there's anyone here who is not on WhatsApp, because my mother and grandmother are on WhatsApp. I was going to make a proposal. I was going to make a proposal that because because the documents are available on soft copy, you can either sit and lament as you wait for the hard copy, or you can do in the interim what I want to propose.
Thank you.
Is you can be able to avail yourself of a soft copy of the document.
Right, but you're writing on the assumption that everyone has a smartphone, right? But my grandmother has a smartphone in the village. That she can access also internet. We have internet infrastructure.
It's not an assumption. It's not an assumption.
Okay, give me his moment.
Yeah, I'm speaking on the authority of data that is available publicly on mobile phone penetration, on smartphone use in this country. Let us not be disingenuous even in the argument. One of the things that I will never do is defend something that I believe is not right. We accept that there is a difficulty in production of the physical copies. It would have been nice to have them distributed the way in which the draft constitution was distributed, but the truth of the matter is that there are avenues or interventions that we can avail ourselves.
Thank you. Maybe we need to also rope in Anne in the written on this particular question about the funding as well. He says money is strictly, you audit this particular money, but is there a component of a corporate social responsibility from the parties as well? Right? That yes, if there is a need for the need for these copies to be with Wananchi, there is a corporate social responsibility aspect of it. Is this really cast in stone how they will spend the money, or do you dictate how they spend the money?
Now it's not the registrar, it's the act that dictates how the money should be spent. From the perspective of civic education, there's very little that you can do with the political parties fund, but I submit that parties have other sources of funds, probably from members, probably from other donors that donate to them. Maybe through that avenue, they can use the component of civic education. Because why am I not funding Madakadua's party? I would gladly be willing to fund Madakadua's party, but the act does not allow. And I think that is one issue that is under review, the threshold on what the party should attain.
Fantastic. So that is not just the only source. We have also other donors, development partners that also fund the parties as well. Is that true? Martha Karo, you can answer that finally, and also with the FGM that Sadia was asking.
Actually, there is no direct funding to any parties by partners, and partners will fund CMD to host forums like this or host a forum internal to the party, but not give you hard cash. So perish the thought that we are getting any outside money.
All right. Thank you, Martha. Maybe you can also answer the question of FGM.
FGM.
Yes.
We have supported eradication of FGM, and when I was in Parliament, we supported a bill brought for that purpose. But this is almost an emotive question. Leaders must work within their communities. If when I left Gishogo there was still FGM, then I would not have been crusading as hard. But we know there are areas where the awareness is low, and that is why I believe the government has an anti-FGM board. I would urge my sister and all those coming from areas where FGM is ripe, and one of them is Meru, people should band together and do a campaign that involves elders, involves the opinion leaders. Laws alone cannot change people. It has to be a conversation. It's a difficult thing, but yes, women need help. It causes untold suffering.
Okay.
I was talking about the structure of education, not infrastructure. The structure of education in our parties. That's my question.
Okay, I can speak on Kenya and say we have a structure of inclusion, and I know that the registrar checks every party. If you do not have representative of disability, the registrar may very well give you a notice to strike you out. How well a party picks its representative is a different issue. But I know the law requires us to be inclusive of now.
Could we hear from Ali Macquarie on that particular aspect as well, briefly? Then we have also Musalia Dawdi. Then we will come back to the question about age and the generation exits that you raised, that you need also them to baton to the young people. on the structure of the party, especially when it comes to inclusion of people living with other who are unable. You can. But be very brief as well. Brevity is of essence.
Okay. The questions that have been raised here are extremely important. Some of them should not be taken as questions, but as guidance to us as leaders, political leaders, and also the government. The question that was raised as to why BBI reports are not available, not only to you here, but all over the country, is actually a very, very important question, and one should not defend it in any way whatsoever, that there is this excuse, there's no money in parties, money in the government coffers. That is not good enough. True political parties do not have that kind of money to print copies and distribute to their members. It's true. Maybe one or two parties, Wiper Democratic Movement, qualified for funding, but that's a matter for elsewhere. Somebody is holding your money and you'll have to release it because it's now dealing with Z-Papa. Thank you. So copies must be availed to all, and this is the responsibility of the government, because the commission is a commission that was appointed by the government, gazetted, and it's supposed to give its report to be read and be analyzed by all in Kenya. Don't leave it to political parties, it is the responsibility of the government. Please, there should be no excuses, these copies must be availed. Two, the Wiper Democratic Movement has full representation of the disabled and the youth at all tiers, which I chair, including the National Executive Council. And we've gone beyond that. We have a national forum known as the Young Wiper Democrats. Young Wiper Democrats. And there are many members in here who are members of the Young Wiper Democrats. Young Wiper Democrats. The leader of this forum is actually a lady of that same age group, none other than the Deputy Governor of Taita Taveta, Her Excellency Majala Mlambui. We have more than, I will not give the figures, lest the other political parties try to do what we already did. All right. The question of age is also a very important question, but then we have a problem as Africans all over, by the way, because English is not really our mother tongue. We tend to make an interpretation of what we consider as old from our mother tongue, from our home languages, to English. In the Constitution, the youth are those who are 35 years and below. You qualify for that funding, whatever you call it. You are no longer young. The upper limit is not defined. And it is very, very important for us not to take people with gray hair like Mwakwera, and I love it, that they are old. No, I'll give an example. I am experienced, very well exposed, highly knowledgeable. And that's what developed countries do. You look at the President of the United States of America, he's in his 70s. You look at those who are contesting to be president later this year, they're in their 70s. Some of them are hitting 80s. It's a question of making use of knowledge, leadership, institutional memory, experience, and you should take 35 above as old age. In Africa, people used to die at the age of 46. They are old people. Now people live far beyond 100 plus. But there is a time when the person who is called old really ceases to function mentally and physically and becomes a problem. And at that stage, one just moves off the stage. Make use of institutional memory.
Thank you.
The person who brought independence to this country, Jomo Kenyatta, was in his 70s. It was not a young man, aged 30.
All right, thank you.
The president called President Mwai Kibaki was in his 70s, went to the 80s, and did fantastic governance in this country.
Thank you, thank you.
President Moi,
thank you, thank
when
you.
he was in the 70s.
That list will go on and on. Thank you. We conclude some time. We need some time. So, conclude, please.
I conclude. When he hit 70, he decided now to release all prisoners He said, bring another constitution, give a term limit to be 10 years for a president, give free milk, improve the education system. Experience is extremely important. Don't water it down, because that is where your foundation should be.
So what would you say about Musalia Mudavadi, who took, a very, he was actually, not even the vice president, when he began as a minister, he was barely 20, you were barely 30, he was 29 by then, right? When you're talking about experience, what experience did he have?
In English, we have people who are referred to as whiz kids. And not everybody is a whiz kid.
All right, can we hear from the whiz kid maybe that you're trying to
Tom Moya was a minister in this country when he was 28. Kenneth Matiba was a PS when he was 30. I didn't make that, but when I was 26, I was a principal of an A-level school.
Thank you.
Why not? 26 years of age.
Thank you, because of the time.
There are
I need to buy it, I'm sorry. Let's just listen
one of them
from the whiskey. Whiskey,
if indeed there was a whiskey, then I'm a whiz elder now. Anyway, I just want to say that there were two issues. One was around the BBI and the funding. There are perhaps two fundamental questions that we need to ask ourselves. One, if the BBI is gazetted and it's an initiative by the government and the opposition, and indeed they want to see it through, the first question that we should ask is this: why aren't you making the necessary resources available to distribute this document? If you don't have the resources, is it by design, or is it because there are genuinely no resources? Is there somebody who may want to have limited exposure of the report of the BBI by design?
Oh, yes,
What would be the motive of not having that document out? These are the questions that we will have to ask ourselves as we go forward. But if indeed we have embarked on a process of this nature, then it should be funded. We pay taxes, and we expect those taxes then to be used to make sure that the common man, the ordinary man, is getting what they require to make an informed decision. That is as far as I can go in relation to the BBI. Why do some of us attend? There was a gentleman who raised that point. And I said it a few days ago, that some of us have been attending the BBI rallies because we believe we also owe it to the Kenyans to bring sanity in those public posturing rallies. Because there are some people who are there and they're communicating to the messages, but there are others who are there who are bent on creating the villains that we talked about. They're not speaking to the issues, but they want to bring a division. And therefore we start seeing reckless statements that have been doing the rounds. We have started seeing insults on the platform when that should not be happening. So if we stick to the issues, then BBI can generate something that can be useful to this country. So I hope as we go forward, it will be understood in that context. We want proper issues and the issues to be focused on, and then we can move ahead. I just want to say that age, as somebody said, is also a function of transition. I was 29 when I became Minister for Supplies and Marketing, and I was 33 when I became Minister for Finance. right? I served. But I also want to tell you that in history, when you hear of this famous thing called the exchequer and the audit process, if you go back to matters of public finance, you'll find that the then Prime Minister in UK, somebody I think called either Pritt or something, very early, yes, a Pritt somewhere. He was about 22 to 23 years old, and he's the one who formulated the law that deals with what is public finance globally under the exchequer and the audit process. He was a young man. So there is potential in young people. Let us blend it with experience. The young ones must be brought on board so that they can gather that experience. And those who are older must also have the wisdom to know when it is time to exit from the dancing floor. So this is something that can be developed and nurtured. So I can only encourage you, do not despair. As young people, you have the opportunity. You are going to be taking up these challenges every other day. After all, how old was the owner of Google? What's his name? Bill Gates. And Microsoft, Bill Gates and the other people. Yeah, when they were starting their matters in the garages in California, how old were they? How old were these people? 20s, isn't it? And they've made and changed the world. So don't sit there lamenting permanently. No, no, no. Know that you have the potential.
Thank you.
Unleash it.
Thank you. Before you sit down, I think also there was a question about the enthusiasm on the BBI that is being showcased. And you talked about dancing on the same spot. We have TJRC report, we have the Dungu report. These have not been implemented. Your comment on that? I think that was a question raised by the gentleman behind there. Yes.
I think briefly. What we wanted is to have the willpower and the resolve to go beyond the reports. Let's not generate reports and sit on them. Let's generate reports and implement them. That is the simple message that we have. The willpower, the political will, the national goodwill for us to move forward and implement this report.
Right.
Thank you.
Lastly, Martha Karua on the issue of age, then we come to another set of questions, the last one.
That goodwill can be generated by citizens holding their leaders to account. If there was structured dialogue on BBI, you would probably have asked that question, why the TJRC is not being used to address historical injustices, why Dongo report is not being used to address land issues, why Kriegler and Waki are not being used to address electoral injustices. Then on age, let us not soft pedal here. Leadership is never given, inanyakuliwa. Yule mtu anajisikia ameiva ya kutosha, amka na uende upambane. My grandmother told me not to ever wait for space to be given. Wakati wangu nilinyakua nikiwa youth, and at 62, I consider myself extremely young for the I am just now right for the top. Even in a county top, even in a country top. So my dear sons and daughters, you got to grab it from me.
Just wants a right of reply, we come to you briefly. He wants a right of reply on the Wi-Fi issue of money, and then on the issue also of disability from his party. This is the last one, we'll come back to you.
Thank you very much. I think I'll just pick it from where Martha has left. I agree. Age really is a number, as they say. And you are only as young as the thoughts in your head. The youngest prime minister right now is 34 years in Finland, and she's a woman. And the person who has the highest support in the Democratic race for the ticket in the US, Bernie Sanders, is almost 80, 78. And it is because he speaks the language of the young people. He's the one who's saying once he's elected president, he'll forgive all their student debt. He's the one who's saying that these are key issues because they are the ones that are holding people back. Imagine getting your first job and all you're doing is paying loans. It's like our health issue here in this country. So the person who's speaking the language of your language is the person that you will support. So I agree with you, Martha. Nothing is going to be given to us. Nobody will leave the stage of their own volition. We have tried there in Western Kenya asking those leaders to leave. They have refused to leave. They have to be kicked out. Finally, my brother Makwele has raised the issue of political party monies. I will once again find refuge in the office of the Registrar of Political Parties. She is best placed to advise which political parties have qualified for funding. And somebody asked here, why is she not funding Martha Karua's party? It's because you don't want to vote for Martha Karua's party. If you had given her the numbers, because the fund is calculated on the basis of how many votes a political party has received. So if you want to give Martha the money, give Martha the vote. But for now, because you are with us, we thank you very much for the vote.
Thank you. Right. I want to acknowledge also the presence of Honorable Adegala Beatrice Adegala, Women Rep, Vihiga County. Simamos the voters. Also Senator Petronila Were, NC nominated Senator as well. Honorable Leader of Minority in Kakamega County, where are you? Also the PS of Livestock and Fisheries. This is Edwin Nkema. Thank you very much. And we need to thank these gentlemen for what they did. I think for the farmers who are crying about the donkey business, and we know what was really happening with the donkey slaughter in the country, right? People have been really agitating that the numbers, according to Calro, of donkeys in the country were diminishing. Almost under 1 million. Imagine when you have your children, they will not be seeing donkeys. They'll be seeing donkeys on National Geographic, right? Because of this illicit trade that has been happening of the Chinese with the AGL and why we had the big fine and the flash of interest on the donkey skin. So I want to thank the Ministry of Agriculture for that good intervention they did, banning donkey trade in the country. Give them a round of applause. So we want to appreciate you, the Principal Secretary, Livestock and Fisheries. We come to you, right? Let's come, just a moment. Right. So we don't want also to keep our speakers for long here. We just want to take 2 questions. So that will be from a gentleman and a lady. The last one, pertinence, gentleman and a lady. These guys really want this session to be extended. I know you're really strapped for time.
Let me just a moment, just a quick announcement. A quick announcement. The owner of these vehicles, please, they will be towed. They'll be towed and you will pay for them to be released. KCP 157U. KCP 157U, KCR 506G, KCJ 236E, KBN 520X, KCH 045V, KXF 8, this is 898, 898 something. Please, if that is your car, go and remove it. It is blocking traffic, it will be towed. Thank you.
All right. Who has not spoken? The last one. 2 questions.
Thank you. My name is Michael, and I want to be on record that my home county is here. But I went to school in Rift Valley, and I live in Kiambu. I know the essence of peace in this country, and I'm glad that SGODM, Mr. Sifuna is here. I'm glad that our big brother Musale, Honorable Musale, is here. Please, my appeal is, let us be serious about BBI. I always ask myself one question. Yes, it's a question. That's what I'm writing. How do I tell my people back in the village, back in Siaya, that BBI is not about stopping one man from ascending to the presidency? That is what we need to address as a nation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Alichukuaje maji?
Opportunity to grab is never given. Thank you. You know, I'm Onoken Omenya from Saya County. I have one question. At first, I wish to remind this honorable gathering that the reason why Kenya is an enemy, I mean, hypocrisy is the reason why Kenya is an enemy of countries like Singapore. And at one given time they were at par. But today, Kenya is many times tougher than Singapore. Now my question is, considering that the nature of the politics of this country makes it very possible for this country to experience ethnic antagonism, where we form the tribal groupings in the name of political parties, and then we incite our tribes against one another, and the worst affected are youths, forcing them to use tribalism as the only tool of hope, believing that the only way their economic challenges I'm bending it. Believing that the only way their economic challenges can be addressed is when their own is in power. And for example, if I give you an example with Jubilee, Jubilee is just a merry-go-round of Kikuyu psychology, where we are being told kumi. If you look at Wiper, for you to see Wiper or hear about Wiper, you have to go to Wiper. Yes. If you want to hear about ANC, you have to go all the way to Western. Might reluctantly say are trying to be political national party are only ODM and CAN. My question now, are we put it as a provision in the constitution to have only three national parties where we have one party, representing status.
We have another session in the afternoon, right? We'll have all these questions in the afternoon, but we don't need to keep also our partners because also they have other engagements, right? So, can we just take one final question from a lady in the interest of gender parity, right? I think you've been shooting up your hand for the longest time. Briefly, don't be like you.
I'm dramatic. My name is Kenya Matai. I'm a student at the University of Nairobi. I'm glad to be here. I wanted to ask, we had the handshake and we thought, oh, there's public order. We know that development thrives in public order. Then BBI came in. Now we are a bit confused. There's public disorder. We feel like it's a burning bridges initiative rather than building. It's taking us back to our tribal to a point that even as students we are wondering, oh, we thought development is gonna come, but now we are back to tribalism. So as political leaders, what initiatives are you taking to ensure that we don't go to our tribal cocoons again? Thank you.
So both are pertinent issues that are raised, and we'll want to also just open the forum for our panelists. I don't know, I won't just speak any. If you're interested to answer on the BBI issue, we talked about structured dialogue, and I think that's a very pertinent issue when it comes to the BBI as well. Maybe taking mental notes of what they were asking. Let's just begin from what the gentleman was asking. Is this also BBI, as they say, when you take the political aspect of it, that the sort of sentiment that is being raised on the ground is the perception that this is pushing the agenda that is being built up to try and sort of really have a reverse psychology on other side of, I don't want to mention parties, that you're trying to also maybe put on the sidelines a political figure in this particular country. You know what we're really talking about. So let me just give you that opportunity. Can we begin with Masana Mudavadi briefly?
I think I spoke to this thing earlier. If you cared to listen, when I was speaking earlier, I did say that for as long as there is a perception that the BBI is a constellation of political leaders on one side against another, we are creating a problem in this country. Yes. We must move away from that. So the BBI is supposed to be about issues and not about personality. My brother, you are spot on. Yes. If we are going to drive the BBI the way we are seeing it go in some of the public forums, then we are creating room for an extremely divisive nation. So we must be very careful in dealing with that. On the issue of parties, Kenya shall remain a multi-party state, and we must safeguard that particular aspect, that we should always be a multi-party state. We should not strive and undermine that process. Let the parties grow, but let us remain a multi-party state. La mwisho kabisa. I've seen the program of the CMD, and I think they have lined up some of the members of the BBI to come to this forum. We do not speak for BBI. There's a committee, there's a steering committee. The questions that you are asking, the detailed questions around the BBI, when they come here, please direct those questions to them so that they can respond directly about it.
Thank you. And the beauty is we'll be having a BBI steering committee in the next session. So we want just to take a short break. But before I do that, also let me just invite the chair of CMD Kenya, Abshiro, and I can just say something.
Thank you, Deba. Good afternoon. Thank you very much. I think we are on the right path. The passion with which we are asking these questions, our Center for Multiparty Democracy, I'd like to thank our panelists.
I think we are done, yeah?
Very honorable Mother Karua.
Yeah, I know it's done now. Mheshimiwa has just finished. They're taking a break.
Zipapa, our elder, but also young at heart. You've seen how he's a whiz kid himself. Exactly. And we also have my vice chairperson, Sifuna. I would like to thank you, and I would like to encourage you. Democracy is about dialogue. Do not shy away from asking us the hard questions, and you're asking the right questions. And there's no question that is wrong or right. The only wrong question is the one that hasn't been asked. We are sorry we cannot give you all the time. I've been with the youth the whole morning with the speaker. There's several